On this week's show, Nigel talks about Doctor Who.
Nothing happens.
I talk about YouTube's origin. It's like Lost, but set in space.
What do you mean, Lost in Space?
No, it's not Lost in Space. It's Lost, like the TV show Lost with the airplane crashing. That, not the fucking Robinsons.
So it's set at sea?
No, it's in space. Oh, fuck. And we say goodbye to Stanley. Stay tuned. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gamers, geezers, geeks alike, and comic book legends. It's this week's Monkey Nut Punch podcast. And as always on these podcasting journeys, I have my stalwart Nigel. Say hello, Nige.
Hello, everyone.
In this episode, we'll be covering Doctor Who, Origin, and the passing of the Stan the Man Lee. Okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about Doctor Who. So, go on, Nige, open it up, because I've kind of given up on this, and I want to hear your opinion.
I too have sort of come to the end of my watching of Doctor Who, because yet again they've gone political in the sense that, yeah, I don't mind them covering historical things and things that actually happened, but it just felt a little bit like, you know, shit. Yeah, okay, so you've got two people madly in love, want to get married. One's a Muslim, one's a where are they from? Are they Hindu?
The Hindu, yeah. So
yeah. So, you know, fine. Well, maybe not back then, but they obviously thought so. And the bloke, he is living there with his brother. They've been to war. They fought for their their independence, their right, their freedom, and all that sort of stuff. And it basically starts off with this guy's brother marking out a territory, and he's sitting there going, yeah, I've got prior knowledge of, like, this is where the demarcation is going to be for Hindu land, and Muslim land stops here, sort of thing. And then he's coming up with, he's dead against his brother marrying this Muslim lady, and there was no reason for him to be against it. He was just against it.
No, I'll disagree with that, because that's like a big fucking no-no in that culture. That's like a real no-no. That's yeah, and you've heard the term honour killings.
Oh yeah,
that's usually where that shit stems from.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I find that stuff, well, a bit of nonsense, really, but just an excuse to kill someone. And it was very slow, not much going on. My wife literally said, you carry on watching it, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Within about 15 minutes of the thing starting. And it was. I persevered, because obviously I want to talk about it on the podcast. I wanted something to happen that was decent. I did like the idea of the Watchers who were there.
But just to cover something, you watched Capaldi's last episode, yeah?
No, I'd given up by then.
You'd given up by then, because they had another group do exactly the same.
Did they?
Yeah. And technically, that's in this season. So it's ripping off an episode from this season. That's how... And the thing is, those aliens in that served no bloody purpose. They weren't...
No.
They weren't antagonists or anything, and it was just, why were
No.
they there? You didn't need them.
There was no reason. You could have had the story play out without them even in it.
Yeah.
And it would have been exactly the same. All it did... Well, alright. Maybe they added them into the story later. They've gone, we'll do this. We're fucking with Yaz's past. We're trying to make sure time travel doesn't interfere with what happens in the current. And I like the way they referenced it a few times. She's saying we can't basically fuck with anything. These two have to get married. And Yaz is like, yeah, but he's not my granddad. It's like, yeah. But something obviously happens after they're married in order for, all this for you to be born. So you can't fuck with it. And it's good timey-wimey advice, isn't it?
Well, there was an episode in Chris Eccleston's the first season of The Return of Doctor Who called Father's Day, where he took Rose back in time to see her father. Okay. Yeah. And she said to him, he says, what happens was a guy driving along hit my dad and then drove off, and then my dad died alone in the street. And he goes, I'd just like to be there for him.
Right.
Yeah. So they stood there, they watched, and then she ran out on the road and fucking saved his life. Caused a horrible tear in time and space, and these things turned up called the Reapers, which would just consume everything to try and put the timeline right. And the car that hit him kept on looping around the church that they were hiding in, and it was actually done really well. Because the Doctor was fucking livid at her for that. Yeah, he was absolutely fucking livid at her because that's not what we do. And it's like, that's what you do. Because, yeah, I know, but it's not what you do. You can't change your personal timeline.
Yeah, and that's why she was... I like the fact that they referenced this, even at the start, when she say she was umming and ahhing whether or not to take her back, or take them back to Yaz's own timeline. Maybe it was a nod to that episode where that happened, and that's why she was so hesitant to do that. And I do like the way that they kept referencing the fact that if you change something in your past, if you stop them from getting married, then something will happen and Yaz will cease to exist. And we can't have life without Yaz, can we?
Yes, we can, because she doesn't do anything.
But
she's like a complete fucking non-event in the TV show. Because there was another one where the Doctor went back in time by accident and wound up on Mars, and it was like the first mission to Mars where they started colonising Mars, yeah? And for some reason, the person in charge of the station, they had a nuke in there in case something went wrong, and she detonated the nuke. And it turns out that they thawed out a block of ice thinking they found water so they could sustain the colony and whatnot. And it turns out that it carried an infectious fucking disease with it, which then infected everyone else and then caused them to then spew water at other people and so forth and so on. And at the end of it, the Doctor turns around. He has to leave as the whole thing's blowing up. And as it blows up, he turns around and goes, fuck it. I won the Time War. I'm fucking the person, yeah? If anyone's going to change time, it's going to be me. So he gets there and he rescues 3 of them. Yeah, and he drops them back on Earth.
Right.
And the person in charge turns around and goes, because he'd been speaking to her about it, and he explained this was a fixed point, because he goes, there are certain bits in time where you can change and ones that you can't. He goes, there are fixed points in space-time that you don't touch. Yeah, so the Hindenburg disaster, certain bits of World War II, etc., etc. He says you can't change these. What might we do? If you do, there's massive fucking consequences, and the universe gets very uppity with you. And the TARDIS also kind of refuses to land. The TARDIS likes landing at these points, like temporal tipping points,
right,
where you can do something and you can make a change. But he landed at a fixed point where he couldn't change it, and he changed it. And then when he turned it was great because Tennant turned into an arsehole. Yeah, when he steps out and he turns around and says, "I am the fucking Time Lord victorious." Yeah,
right,
and I can do whatever I bloody well choose to. We didn't say bloody well choose to. Anything I want. Yeah, and the woman in charge of the thing, he realises that if you didn't die on that expedition, then her daughter wouldn't have taken the first faster than light travel, and then humans wouldn't have gone beyond the stars. So she went back and shot herself to make sure everything could kind of balance itself out, and then the timeline kind of reset. It was a good one. It's called Waters of Mars. But this was just fucking boring in comparison to that.
There was not much going on. There was a lot of talking. I thought something interesting might happen with these alien, because they, the way the Doctor described them were an assassin race, and you were thinking, oh, who the fuck are they killing? Who are they aiming for? What's their purpose?
And who's paid them to do it?
And much, much more interesting than we watch people die.
That's just fucking boring.
I mean, it's pointless, because the people who are dying do not know they're being watched by these things. They don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they put them into some vault thing in their spaceship. And like you mentioned earlier, there was obviously the four of them, so the three companions and the Doctor, plus the two main characters getting married, plus the two extras, the brother and I think it was her mother. That was it. Until the very end, where he was saying, riots are coming, can you hear the noise?
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff.
It would be nice to be able to fucking see it.
Yeah.
It would be...
Even a fleeting, panoramic of rioting going on throughout a nearby village,
or if you're very, very cheap, yeah, you could have got someone to set up a fucking barbecue, and you could have just seen the smoke off the barbecue going, oh my god, they've started burning so-and-so down.
Yeah.
That would have...
They could have built an incredibly small little hut and zoomed in really close and said someone's set fire to the hut. But they didn't. All you got the sense of, shit, they live in the middle of nowhere. How can rioting affect them? And when rioting did affect them, it's because Matey Boy's brother has gone off to get the rioters from the nearby village and bring them to his house, because he married the Muslim girl. But there was only 5 of them.
Yeah, I know.
I don't class that as a riot.
Yeah, it's just...
Well, maybe it's a gang. I don't know.
This is just...
The world is empty in the eyes of Mr. Chibnall.
Yeah,
there's nobody populating this world, this
planet,
this universe, this system.
Do you know what? Before I get onto it, I'll just say that I watched Origin on YouTube, yeah? And that's a story of, I think it's about 8 people stranded in space. And they felt there was more people in that than there was in all the fucking episodes of Doctor Who I've been watching so far. Seriously, and a series where you're supposed to feel like there's fucking no one, it's just us left on this goddamn ship, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And they've managed... Oh, dude, it seems really lazy in both writing and production. It just seems like, we'll set this as a backdrop and we'll keep it in 3 rooms. Yeah? We'll start off in the TARDIS, because that's where we start off. And that's the rules. Yeah? Then we'll go outside so we get a feel for what outside looks like. Won't hire any extras because that costs too much. And then we'll designate 3 rooms and everything will happen in those 3. Maybe, we'll say 5 rooms. Yeah? This one was 3. You had 3 fucking rooms. You had... 3 bits, yeah? You had the alien spaceship, which was big and empty. You had the barn that they lived in.
Yeah.
The TARDIS.
Yeah.
The fields.
Yeah. The fields.
Near the TARDIS.
And
the woods.
The stream and the woods.
That's the stream was... That barely counts. It was hardly in it. That stream would have been far more important. They could have killed him and had blood running down the stream. And that would have been really fucking dramatic. But no, we can't have that because that's interesting.
Fucking interesting, yeah. So, okay, I even said to you before we started, I said, yeah, let's talk about Doctor Who. Hang on, what the fuck happened in Doctor Who? And you went, nothing.
Nothing.
And I was sitting there racking my brains to try and remember what the episode actually was. And I couldn't remember. Yeah, it only came to me when I started Googling it. I went, oh, yeah, so that happened. It was like, it was forgettable.
Yeah, they're all forgettable. There's not one in there that's memorable. They're all forgettable.
No.
I'm having trouble. They've all just blurred into one mess. And the only one I remember is the fucking spider one.
The spider one, because it had spiders.
Spiders versus Trump. That's that episode.
Yeah.
That's what they should have called it. Spiders versus Trump. They should have just gone all out and had Trump before he went to become president.
SVT.
That would have been great. Just before he becomes Trump, yeah, he fights these spiders, and that's why he becomes president of the United States, to defend them against fucking hostile threats, be it alien or domestic.
Yeah. I know how to deal with these fuckers.
That would have been fucking interesting, but still, he can't do interesting. He's a shit writer. The thing is that I'm getting to the conclusion that I don't like Jodie Whittaker as a doctor. Because the reason is I think it's his writing, and I think it's the fact that she won't fucking speak up for herself, which I don't like, because she seems a bit superfluous. Yeah, it's like in previous Doctor Who episodes, yeah, it was the Doctor's job to make the rousing speech to get someone to change their mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You watched it, yeah? It's one of the staples, along with Cue the Music, Save the Day. Yeah? Bossy's Mush. Who's Ryan, and who's his dad or granddad?
Graham.
Graham's the one doing those speeches, yeah? It seems like Graham's the fucking doctor and Ryan's his assistant. Which would be more interesting, because I actually like those two. They're the bits I actually enjoy watching, because you watch it. Yeah, and it's like kind of at the beginning, he turns around and goes, Pakistan, this one's crossed off a bucket list, and like Ryan's like, yeah, just go see Pakistan. I haven't seen Pakistan, yeah. What a great idea. And there's like some enthusiasm. And all the doctor did was just, she didn't do anything. She just like she points a fucking screwdriver at stuff. Constantly. She needs to, she needs to lose it. She needs to have it destroyed. She seriously does. She needs to have it destroyed, because she's always doing it, yeah?
She's always using that for everything. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah, there's a bit where she had to cut a fucking rope. Did she use a knife or a pair of scissors? No, she used a sonic fucking screwdriver. Yeah, it's just... Chibnall did it in one of Matt Smith's episodes called... I think it's Hungry Earth. I can't remember what the second part was, with the Silurians, yeah? And the sonic screwdriver is not supposed to be a weapon. It's very clear in like the Doctor Who Bible that it's not a weapon. And Moffat let him get away with this, where he was using it to disarm the fucking Silurians and their guns. And it's like, you can't use it for like that. The sonic screwdriver, the idea of it is it's so a locked door doesn't keep the Doctor out. That's all it's there for. That's a plot device so they can get through it. It's the same with the psychic paper. The psychic paper's there so that they can go into a room and then start asking the questions. Yeah? And then we can then find out what's going on. Because if it's behind a locked door or behind a guarded room, we never know. But you add the sonic screwdriver in, you can go through a door, add the psychic paper in, can talk to a guard, yeah? It's shit.
I had forgotten it was actually on this weekend, due to the last few episodes. Wife doesn't want to watch it anymore. The kids haven't even asked me if they want... if it's on. Typically they would say, oh, can we watch, even the younger one's a little bit more into this than my older one. Even he now doesn't even ask if Doctor Who's been on this week. So it's not getting a good review, let's say. It's just boring. Nothing's going on. When
Moffat did it, yeah, there was always this. There's something towards the end of the series, yeah. I will put little clues in towards the end of the series, like Missy, and you knew that was going somewhere, and it did go somewhere. But this, I'm hoping that it is building to something, because it's going to be the most fucking flat finish to a TV show ever, and I think it's going to get cancelled. I want it to get cancelled. So,
I don't think this Chibnall guy should have been given the gig. Somebody else who actually knows a little bit should have been given a job. But hey, what do I know? So, I'd like to talk. Well, all right. Before we move on to Origin TV series, this next episode airing tomorrow is somebody else writing it, and this guy seems to have a little bit of pedigree behind him, working on a few shows and stuff. And he was actually, cool. What did he say? He said it feels like he has had a long-term plan to lead him into writing for Doctor Who, and it seems to have paid off.
Yeah, but the poor bastard's got the shittiest fucking version of it.
Unfortunately, yes, he's come in at a point where people are starting to tune out of the series. But you never know. People might like his episode and go, "Oh, do you know what? That one wasn't bad. It was written quite well.
It's got Lee Mack in it, and I love Lee Mack. Lee Mack's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
So we've got an episode with Lee Mack in it, and even the this next Doctor Who episode, even the what do you call it? They had like a tease on it. You can watch on the YouTube on their YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I watched it, and I was like, it's just watching Lee Mack rather than watching Doctor Who.
Huh.
Can I just intervene quickly?
Yeah, go on.
I know. Have you two watched every episode of Doctor Who this season so far?
Yeah.
And just give me because obviously I've just joined the conversation. Just give me a quick bullet point cap from each of you. What you don't like about it.
I can do it in 2 words.
Go for it.
Can do.
It's shit.
And you, Gaz?
It's empty. The writing is very, very, very weak. Jodie Whittaker is weak because of the weak writing, and I don't know if she's a good doctor or not because she hasn't been given a fucking decent script to run with. Heavy-handed political messages in there. You've got shit allegories in there, and it feels empty. The world
feels empty.
Everywhere they go, it's empty. They were in Sheffield, and it felt like it was occupied by 7 people outside themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah? And even those 7 people looked more like background decoration than they were...
Just a quick one to intervene. I haven't watched any episodes, but I have read little things about it, and I know the viewing figures are absolutely shocking.
Yeah, they've gone down to 5 million now.
Yeah, they keep dropping week on week, and people say the same thing, which is, where are the monsters?
Yeah.
Why are we watching a history show?
Yeah.
That's what a few people have said. Stephen Moffat himself has actually said about how they're playing catch up to people like Netflix and Amazon who have bigger budgets. He said it looks cheap.
It does look cheap.
He said it looks cheap compared with what they were doing as well.
It does look cheap in comparison to what they were doing. I agree with that.
And just looking at it from the outside, seeing clippets, I don't know about you guys, but it does look just very bland. It looks like it's lacking structure. You know, like an end goal is probably the best way to describe it. I don't even need to kind of get involved to watch it to know that it looks weak. You can see it from you almost get the whole episode. Just a quick one, sorry, Nige. You almost get the whole episode within just watching the preview.
Yeah, it's absolutely fucking spot on there. I can't argue with that.
I'd like to formally welcome Alex to the podcast for our listeners who didn't know that he's just turned up and suddenly this voice appeared out of nowhere. So, hi Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, you're right, Nigel.
I want your cake, your boots, and your motorcycle.
Okay.
Recorded live in front of a Korean security guard, it's Keith!
Yeah, it was an interesting episode. I don't know what to think about this season, because one minute it's smacking you down with all the politics and you're just going, oh, for fuck's sake. And then the next minute it pulls out what was quite an interesting episode. The trouble is you feel like they're doing it for the wrong reasons. Does that make sense?
You think they're doing it for wrong reasons. I think they're creatively bankrupt. I genuinely think...
What do you mean by that?
They haven't got any ideas. We can't do it. We can't do Doctor Who Christmas special because we can't think of anything. Yeah, instead, why don't not go? It's just going to feature snow. That's all they have to do. They don't have to make it Christmassy themed. Just have it set in like a winter setting. A good adventure in a winter setting, that'll do. But I think Chris Chibnall is creatively bankrupt. He hasn't got any ideas. He rehashed an idea from the Capaldi one. I tried to explain this to Nigel, but Nigel never saw the Twice Upon a Time or whatever it was with the glass creatures recording people's deaths.
Yeah, that does make sense now. Yes.
Yeah, so he's got what's that, 6 episodes, and he's having to copy something that happened technically earlier in the season because that's the first episode of the season.
That's true.
I think it as I said, it looks dull. It looks dull. It actually looks dull. I think I've got to the point now I don't like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor because she's not very Doctor-like. And as I said to Nigel, Graham's getting the speeches that the Doctor should be having, where he has that speech to try and flip someone or persuade them to do something right. That's missing. That's one of the reasons we really like Graham, is the fact that that's happened. And I don't know if that's the fact that Chris Chibnall has put in Jodie Whittaker as a woman, but secretly wants to write for a male character.
I don't know. She was less Doctor-like in this episode than she has been. She almost seemed to take backstage to Graham. Yeah,
She doesn't do anything Doctor-like. The aliens weren't a threat, which is the first problem. You kind of set them up. The demons have pinned you up, and we were expecting aliens. If you were going to go historical, you should have just kept it historical. And it should have been timey-wimey threat, and they could have reused the Reapers from Father's Day, which I told Nigel.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I read an interesting article, I think, this week. It was I think it was on Cinema Blend, or was it on Digital Spy? I can't remember, saying that they thought it was a mistake that Chris Chibnall had decided to use none of the sort of like familiar baddies, because you really gauge a Doctor by their performance against something familiar. And because we've had none of that, we can't totally judge Whittaker's Doctor, because we don't see how she deals with, say, the Daleks or the Cybermen or anything like that. And that makes a lot of sense, because there is none of the familiar in this, and therefore you're going to change something so dramatically, which I know there's going to be feminists shouting down the thing, but it is a dramatic change. You need something familiar to associate the Doctor with, and we've had none of that. And I think that's what feels weird. And I don't know, since you pointed out the emptiness of it all, I can't shake it. It is very empty.
I'm sorry I've ruined it for you.
I don't think you didn't ruin it for me, because I was getting really, I'm getting fucked off with everything that I like watching, bringing politics into it, and I'm getting less and less. You know, Arrow for me has got shit because he's locked up, and it's not great. The Flash is okay, but Iris is seriously annoying me, and the daughter annoys me.
Hang on a second. I actually like the fact that Iris is getting shit from her daughter. Her daughter is a stand-in for the audience. Yeah, I don't want to talk to you. Yeah, that's how I feel that is. Yeah, and it's making Iris a better character. In terms of the Flash, no, I think that because before I would happily throw out our fucking airlock, but now it's like I'll keep her around, because if this develops more, that make her character a bit more likable, because struggle and fucking up is interesting.
You do make a good point there. The Flash is the one that I religiously watch. And I quite like Legends of Tomorrow. That's still quite good. I like the fact that they brought what's his face into it.
I like the fact that Legends of Tomorrow, I think halfway through last season, they went, "Oh, we're going to go silly," yeah, and then this season they've just gone balls deep into silly, and it's really watchable. I've enjoyed the last couple of episodes, and it's just like with the fairy godmother, where Constantine's thinking it's a fucking demon, turns out it's like fairy goddamn godmother. He's like, no.
I do like the twists. I love the fact that unicorns are evil. I fucking love that, and I like the fact the fairy godmother's a bit of a bitch. I thought, no, I quite like the twists they're doing here.
Yeah, but she did. The reason it was because she was cast out into hell, wasn't she? So that's why she's. That made sense. The character had like a thing. I haven't seen the Leprechaun one yet. Dan says it's really good. She said there was one bit she laughed quite loud.
So. I've downloaded it. I haven't watched it yet. I don't watch Black Lightning anymore. I have actually. It takes a lot for me to stop watching a series, but it's just pissing me off. And I'm really very, very close to stop watching Supergirl.
Yeah.
Even though I quite like Brainiac, but I'm close. So, Doctor Who, I will finish it. I'm determined because I am a Doctor Who fan, and I'm determined to finish watching it. And I still think on the New Year's episode we're going to get a familiar baddie. I've just got that feeling. But it does concern me, the fact that they can't come up with any fucking ideas, and they actually admitted that. It's just like,
you don't admit that. You don't admit that because it's like if you get stuck for those kind of ideas for Christmas Day, you can go. The Great Escape route, you could go James Bond route, those films that we all get to watch on Christmas Day. Even a fucking Queen's Speech you could do. And at the very least, you just have an adventure set in snow.
Yeah.
That's all we have to do. That's it. It doesn't need to have fucking Father Christmas and stuff. And I'll freely admit that doing that is where issues and stuff come in, because you want to make it Christmas themed, and it doesn't turn out Christmas themed. So don't drop the Christmas theme. Just make it an adventure, something we can watch. And I'll be honest with you, my favourite one is probably the one with Nick Frost as Father Christmas.
Oh, do you know what my favourite Christmas is? It's still the Christmas Carol one with the opera singer and the fish. That to me is just the perfect Christmas special. I don't think you can top it.
I think
I do like the Nick Frost one.
The Nick Frost one was great. I watched it recently. And
it's my second favourite because it's got everything. But I just love the swimming the fish one. There's just something about that episode that gets me. So for me, that will always be the best Christmas special for me. But the Nick Frost one is my second favourite, and I know why it's your favourite, because it has face huggers and it has that alien-esque thing about it, and you are an Aliens fan.
And John Carpenter's the thing, and it was like kind of, it was the only bit of that was Father Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else, he kind of wrote it around. And the thing is that Moffat's writing, in comparison to Chibnall's writing, Moffat always gave you stakes. Something, yes. and you made it feel that way. And I'm sorry, but I'm really missing him. I am so fucking missing him. It's unbelievable.
I agree with you. I think had Moffat stayed on with Jodie Whittaker, we would be loving her more, and I think we would be loving this more. I never thought. Yeah, I miss him completely. I think Chibnall's crap. I think what we were scared of has unfortunately become true. But I mean, it's an interesting episode coming up. The concept is interesting, but I'm not holding out too much hope for it.
Okay.
Anyway,
but
should we talk about something a little bit more?
The origin, which was
less depressing.
It was less depressing to watch. It's a really good TV show, but it failed to stick the landing. And it looks like they blew most of their money in the first 6 episodes of it, which looks fantastic.
So is that to hook you in, you reckon?
Oh God, it was to hook you in. The first 2 episodes I watched on YouTube.
Is Origin a YouTube series?
Yes, an original YouTube series. Yeah.
And premium.
Yeah, if you give a premium member to watch it.
What is the first episode free? Like most of them?
The first 2 episodes are free. So it's like Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai, yeah.
The first 2 episodes are never free.
Oh, that's why they've done that. Then they've blown their budget on the first 2 to made them free.
They blew it on the first. They blew it on the first 8, and then the last 2 are the ones where it needed to have the budget, and it kind of went.
What is just a quick one? What's it about?
All right, it's like this. Yeah, you have this corporation called Siren, and what Siren do is they're colonising a planet near Proxima Centauri called Thea. And the idea is that you can go to Thea and Origin will wipe your history. So you get to go there and have a complete fresh start. So it's kind of like the TV series Lost, but in space. And it's not Lost in space, because that's the thing I was trying to describe it. So you have, like, it starts off, and two of them are kind of ejected from the sleeper tube things they've got. And then they start exploring the ship, and they find some other people on the ship. And then they're like, what's going on? So they work their way up to the bridge, and this girl, this autistic girl, is very good with computers, but not very good with personal interactions. She turns the computers on and figures out that everyone has left the ship apart from them.
Yeah.
The whole ship's been evacuated. All the crew have left and everything.
Large ship, is it? Or
Oh, it's huge. It's fucking huge. It's directed by the guy who did Event Horizon.
Oh, okay.
So as soon as I saw his name pop up, I was like, oh, I like Event Horizon. This is going to be good. So the first 2 episodes, it starts off and you learn about this, I can't remember his name now, this Japanese fella who is in the Yakuza. And his brother's a cop. And he's got an arsehole boss that he's working with. And his brother is trying to get him out of organised crime. Yeah? And he's desperate. He keeps talking to him and keeps trying to do it. And his brother goes, no. And you get to see his backstory of him executing people and whatnot. And it's actually run really well. And it's very very Blade Runner in the style of like the graphics and stuff, the presentation and stuff. And he talks to his brother, and his brother turns around to him and says, look, there's an opportunity. You can get on one of these ships and you can head to Thea and you can put all of this shit behind you. Yeah? And he turns around to his brother and says, no. And he goes, why should I do that? He goes, because your life is shit. He goes, so is yours. You're not married. You haven't been fucking promoted, yeah? Your boss is an equal arsehole to my boss, yeah? You've got a dog. That's the only redeeming thing about you. You've got a dog. And he turns around and says, I'll go if you go. Yeah? To which his brother goes, I'll think about it. Anyway, time passes, he does a few shitty things. And his boss is watching him because he thinks he's up to something. Because he is up to something, he's thinking about leaving fucking the planet. So he says to his brother, he says, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah? Anyway, he's doing a job, and his brother turns around and says, you've got to stop doing the job. We've got to leave now. We've got to get to Siren's headquarters now so they can wipe your history. He goes, why? Because the police are about to raid the fucking building. Get out now. So he just fucking legs it. So he legs it outside. He gets outside. His brother says he's there. Yeah? He then leaves, yeah, and avoids the police. His brother's boss then turns around and goes, you fucking let one go. Yeah? Because you're an utter fucking idiot. You let him go. And it's like, oh, sorry about this, blah, 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 because we'll talk about this later. To which his brother packs up all his stuff and says, I'm fucking off now. Yeah? Packs up all his stuff. And as he packs up his stuff, yeah, he gets caught by the head Yakuza guy. And then the other guy gets caught by him. So he drags him to the room, yeah? And he turns around and says to him, because we don't talk to cops, and then kills his fucking brother. Yeah? He then fucking freaks out, runs off. And then it cuts back to the ship. That's his backstory. So they do that like they do in Lost, yeah? And then it moves on to the ship and what's happening with the ship. So all these other people have woken up in all these other tubes, yeah? So you got Tom Felton, who was Draco Malfoy and thingy, who's absolutely brilliant and one of the best characters in it, especially when you get to see his backstory. This woman who was a former Secret Service agent who shot the person she was supposed to protect. By accident. It was completely by accident. She had, in a fit of rage, she falls over, shooting the intruder, and this girl is hiding in a wardrobe, and she misses, a few shots miss the guy, and go through the wardrobe and kill the girl. Which is fucking tragic. It sounds more comical the way I've described it than it actually went down in the fucking thing. It just sounds like she's like an idiot. And then you've got other characters and stuff like that. Anyway, they're going through all the things, and as they go into the main bridge bit, someone on the radio just goes, help me. And they're like, shit. And he goes, where are they? Like, they have these rings, yeah? So it's like a big long ship with all these big rotating rings. And they're on ring 10. So they go down to ring 10. And the Yakuza guy and the Secret Service agent woman have managed to get hold of a gun from an incapacitated member of the crew. who's been stabbed with something, and she says don't trust anyone. So they go into the thing and they check, and they find this guy, who I think was a navigator, and he starts moving in the most peculiar way, and you hear his bones crunch, because his body starts like reforming and reconfigurating itself. To which they freak out and start shooting the shit out of him, like you should do, yeah. And then they find this other guy who's locked up, who's the ship's medic, and he's locked up, and he turns around and says, "Look, check my gun." What? He goes, "Check my gun." So they check his gun, and they find out he hasn't fired a single shot. And he goes, "How do you know that she, this other member, isn't lying to you about me being infected? Because there's an infection." And it's like, okay, fair enough. And it's like, kind of, yes, right. Anyway, they're talking away to him, and the Secret Service agent asks him a question about being a medic, about his wounds and stuff. And he's like, and then he comes, this weird grin comes across his face. He attacks them and then fucking legs it. And then they're trying to spend a long time trying to track this bastard down. And he goes to attack one of the crew members further up the ship. And as he goes out, this thing starts crawling out of his eyeball. So around the gap between the eyelid and the eyeball, these tendrils start fucking popping out, trying to get Tom Felton's character. To which he's shitting himself, yeah, because he's got this guy, because he's not a big fella, yeah. He's got this massive fucker on him, yeah, with this thing that's trying to climb inside his face via his eye socket. It's really good. And then you kind of go through it, and they figure out what happened was that they were passing through passing into the Proxima Centauri system where Theia is, and a meteorite collided with the ship, and it had this parasitic life form on it, which lives in the black brain. So like lives at the top of the brain, has all these tendrils down there so it can control you and whatnot. And they figure out that it wipes your autobiographical data, hence all the flashbacks. Yeah, if someone hasn't had a flashback, they're not. You don't know who they are. And they did a great one with this Irish girl, because you watch the whole thing through, and this Irish girl is being way too fucking helpful, way too fucking nice. Yeah, and it gets to the bit where it goes, "It's got to be fucking you," like that. So they lock her up, and then the next episode, they then show her fucking backstory. So you're like, shit, it's not her. And it leaves some bits in there, but it's like it's reminiscent of The Thing, with the not knowing who's what, and people are sabotaging bits of equipment. So that this South African doctor has figured out that you can do a scan, and you can see the parasite in the brain. So naturally the creature goes in there and destroys the scanner. Yeah, and then the autistic girl then figures out that she's got a copy of everyone's personal history, which she stole before she left Earth. So she can reference that. So then naturally the thing finds that out, kills her. Yeah, and it's great. It goes through all these things, and they've got some really good backstories with them. And the best one is the Tom Felton character, because the Tom Felton character, he starts off and he's an utter arsehole. Yeah, actually there's two arseholes in it. Yeah, there's a German guy who's an arsehole, and Tom Felton who's an arsehole. Yeah, the German fella, you go to see his backstory. Yeah, he's a con man. He's just an arsehole. He's genuinely an arsehole, and that's his motivation. He's not infected, he's just being an arsehole, because that's what he does, yeah? And then you go to Tom Felton's character, and you get to his backstory, which is brilliant. It turns out that before he left to join the crew going to Theia, he had to do community service. So he had to do community service in an old person's home. So he meets this old lady, yeah, and it's fun because she's on the fucking toilet when he meets her. Yeah, and she goes, "I need a hand up." And he's like, "You're fucking kidding me." He goes, "Can you pull your knickers up at least?" Yeah, he goes, No, you're going to have to pull me up. So he pulls her up. She pulls the knickers up. Takes the piss out of him for a bit. And then he goes into her room the next day, yeah? And she just yells, "Who are you? Who the fuck is he?" Like that. And he's freaking out because he thinks she's got dementia. Yeah? And he's really fucking freaking out, yeah? And as he freaks out, she pisses herself laughing because I've got a degenerative disease which stops me from using my legs and limbs. Yeah, I haven't got dementia, but the look on your fucking face like that because it's brilliant. And then she says to him, then she's like, kind of, "Have you got something on you?" I guess, "What do you mean? Have you got like a joint on you?" And he's like, "Yeah, go make yourself useful." they go down to this bench, and the two of them are sneakily smoking a joint together, and they form this lovely relationship. And they become like really good friends, and he starts enjoying his community service, and then she starts degrading to the point that she can't use her hands. And in the future, when you reach 80, you're allowed to sign yourself up for euthanasia if you want. Yeah, and she says, I'm going to sign myself up for it. I'm not going out like this. Yeah, and it gets to her birthday, and he turns around and goes, fuck it, we're not doing this like that. So he grabs her, gets her in a van, and doesn't throw her in a van, gives her in a van, drives down to the sea, gives her like a wonderful fucking day and whatnot. And he turns around and goes, you know, I'm going to miss you. He goes, just do one day at a time. Yeah, then 1 week at a time, then 1 month, and then 1 year at a time. Try and persuade her not to go and kill herself. And she says, look, I'll think about it. And she turns and he goes, you've got to. He says, but you've got to sort yourself out too. And he goes, okay. And he goes in the next day and he finds out that she's fucked off and had herself topped, which is fucking devastating for the character. And he's just so upset because he's like trying to help his parents out and whatnot and this, that, and the other, and he's devastated by this. The only person that he's managed to connect with is decided to kill herself. And he wanders down to the room where all the elderly people are being kind of housed. And this old guy goes, I can't remember what he called it, community service. Oi, community service, I'm over here. Because that's what she called him. She called him community service. And he goes over, I've got a note for you. So he gives him the note. So he gives him a message and he goes, go to where we spent most of our time together and you'll find a note. So he goes, all right. So he goes down to where they're smoking joints and whatnot, leaves her a message. And it says, go fucking sort your life out, get a girl, settle down. Everything will be all right. And a ticket for the Origin. And it was lovely. It was one of the most lovely fucking stories ever. You watch it and you're like, oh. And what it is the reason he's not being an arsehole, he's just like, he's just at a point in his life where everything just went a bit shit. He's left his parents behind and everything, and he's gone off to this planet. Now they're fucking trapped with a fucking alien on board. It's great. I loved it.
I've got to watch it.
I'll have to show you one of the first two episodes. I'll show you the first episode because it's really good. The Yakuza character is great because I know Keith was talking about like the diversity and stuff in Doctor Who, and he says there's no Chinese people in there, there's no Asian people like that in there. And the lead character is this Asian fella, and he's really good actually. He's really watchable, and because he's got like a nasty streak about him, but he wants to turn around. It makes him interesting, and he kind of like struggles with that because there's like a bit where he goes to shoot certain people. It is really good, and it's creepy. The downside is when it gets to the end of it. I think it's the second to last episode. It's an episode called "It's Me," where you find out who's infected.
I like the idea that it's like the Thing.
It's not like the Thing. It's more like, as I said, it's
like
our brain
concept.
It's like the whole paranoia.
The concept.
The paranoia. Yeah. Like the Hateful Eight. Was the one that Tarantino did?
Yeah, the Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight. But I watched it and I really, really enjoyed it. It was good, and I'll have to show you. The start of it, and I recommend that you watch it if you want to watch something that's a bit different, sci-fi.
It's a shame it's on premium, YouTube premium, really.
Yeah, there are ways of getting around that.
Yeah, you can find ways of getting around. The downside, I found the downside to it is it's too good for the YouTube, so it needs to be on Amazon or Netflix or on any TV station.
But the truth is, though, like, I watched Cobra Kai on YouTube. I thought it was. Brilliant. I thought it was brilliant.
Now I've got the premium service. I'm going to go and watch the rest of Cobra Kai because I only watched the first 2 episodes because they were the free ones.
Did you enjoy it?
The first 2 were great. I started watching the third one, but I had to.
When you get to the end, you'll sit there and you'll go, "Fuck me, I well enjoyed that."
Yeah.
You literally do walk away from it and you sit there and go, "I've really enjoyed it." If YouTube are putting out stuff like that, and you're just saying about that Origin, then maybe they don't need Amazon or Netflix. Maybe they can do it on their own, and maybe that's it. I'd seriously thoroughly enjoyed Cobra Kai, and if this Origin, it sounds bloody good. If it's anything like that, then I think they're onto a winner.
Mm.
You know, because I've got a feeling it won't be too long before people start switching off from Netflix.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Not so much the movies, but the series that they're putting out. The writing's becoming very shitty and weak.
I think that if Netflix dies, it's going to die a slow, quiet death. It'll be one of those ones where... Do you remember Netflix? We're always talking about fucking shit on Netflix. It'll be like that. That's how it'll die. But just because we forgot...
Netflix is going to be the next blockbuster.
Yeah, I reckon so.
4
years and it'll start.
It depends.
Hurt.
It really depends because because Keith and I had an argument over fucking Netflix dropping their price because Disney are going to have their streaming service, which is Disney Plus now.
They will. Yeah,
and Netflix are kind of in a bit of a tiz about it because that's direct competition, and they have no idea how popular or unpopular it'll be. So Netflix are talking about lowering their subscription to £4.
Right.
But I don't know if it's £4 and locked to a single device. Which
who knows?
Which would make sense. Anyway, Origin, fucking love it. It gets an 8 out of 10, and you know that a 5 is average for me, so an 8 out of 10 is probably what you guys would describe as a 9.5. See, because I've got granularity in mine. I use the bell curve, mate. I know what I'm talking about. Inserted segment, so Keith and I are going to talk a bit about Origin. So you've watched the first episode.
I have.
Now, you didn't hear the rest of the conversation, so Origin's good. It gets an 8 out of 10. This is my 8 out of 10 thing, alright? So, but it did fuck the landing on it.
Okay.
Alright, it did fuck the landing on it. You'll understand towards the end, and you'll go, oh, and it's annoying because it's like they almost did it. It's like when you watch one of the gymnasts do the old swingy on the bars, yeah, and you see them and they land and then they just step forward and then step back, and that's like big fucking no in gymnastics. And that's what he did. So don't think of it as, oh my god, it's going to be absolutely fucking terrible. It's just you're going to get to the end and go, almost brilliant.
Is it a one-off?
No.
So there's an opening for another season.
Right at the end. There's a bit right at the end where they receive a radio signal.
Okay.
And yeah, I really enjoyed the hell out of it.
I thought the first episode was interesting, and the production values on it are impressive for a YouTube series.
It's a TV series. It's not a YouTube series. I think it's a bit too good for YouTube. That's what I told Nigel and the others.
Have you watched Cobra Kai yet?
Yes, I watched that. I had trouble sleeping last night and watched the whole lot.
It's good, isn't it?
It is really good, and I like the fact that I got a little annoyed because towards the end, the main kid turned into an arsehole.
Yeah, but that was always going that way because of Cobra Kai. I haven't finished it yet, but I know it's going that way. But it's so loyal to the original movies, and I love the 80s soundtrack, and the comedy in it is quite well balanced, and all the montages. It's an 8. I love it. I think it's fucking fantastic. But LaRusso's a bit of a dick as well.
He's a dick, but only when it comes to Cobra Kai. And you can understand that from his history. So it's really weird because there are two characters in there. I'm rooting for one, but I don't want to see the other one get fucked, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I like them both. They're good people just trying to find their way in the world. And it's about people overcoming kind of their weaknesses, which I think is great. Yeah. So I'm annoyed what they did with Diaz, because I liked him as a character. I was expecting him to lose at the end, but it to be one of those ones where he was cheated by the ref, and they could have turned around and said, "Oh, it was because Danny Russo on the fucking board came in and sponsored this guy at the last bloody moment," sort of thing. And it could have been like with the crane kick to the face, which was illegal in karate competitions.
Yeah,
and
they mention that.
They do. They
mention that. Yeah. They do say it was an illegal kick early on, I think. But no, I think with Origin and Cobra Kai, they are quite interesting series.
Origin's really good. Trust me, when you get further into it, you'll really fucking appreciate it because the Tom Felton character, kind of turns into the hero towards the end.
Yeah, but that, again, I kind of suspected that because he did very similar to the Flash, but it makes me miss him from the Flash. I really liked his character in the Flash, and I was gutted when Julian was only in it for one season because I thought it was really interesting his relationship with what's her face. So that made her character more interesting. Although she's now got quite an interesting plot line going on, which is about bloody time. It's only taken like 5 or 6 seasons to give her an interesting storyline. But Caitlin, that's it.
Yeah.
But no, I enjoyed the first episode. It made me want to see the second episode. It's just I started watching Cobra Kai and really got into that, so I need to finish that and I'll go back to Origin.
Yeah.
So
it's go watch. Definitely watch Origin. It's definitely recommended. It's a case of get fucking YouTube, watch it, watch Cobra Kai, cancel it as soon as possible. All right, I could.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like I should put a little video up on how to cancel it and just tag it into the actual podcast. So
it's interesting on how long these things can last because we are becoming a bit fragmented with all these sort of subscription services because Apple's got one coming out and several of their series sound interesting. Like, they're doing another Amazing Stories. And now, as a kid, I loved that show. I really did. And aren't they doing The Twilight Zone as well? Isn't Apple doing The Twilight Zone?
I have no idea in regards to that. I think that YouTube should have an a la carte television service and encourage all the TV people to come over to them and turn. This is what I think they should model it like this, yeah? You can have a free watch with unskippable adverts in, or you can buy it and have no adverts in. So you can have a TV series run, and now you can either do it one of two ways. You can have it run, and then it goes onto YouTube a week later, so that it still get TV viewers, yeah. Or they can have a whole series there, and then you can buy the whole series at the end and watch the whole thing uninterrupted. That's what I think they should go for, that kind of model, and just go to all the TV companies and say, look, pop it on our service. We've got the technical side covered. You don't have to worry about that. And then we can just negotiate how much, thing. And then when they sell the advert space to like Coke or Pepsi or whatever, they can sit there and say, well, this was going on this TV show. And because it's going through YouTube, we can tell you the exact fucking demographics of people watching. Yeah, so you can sort that out.
I think you're right, but it's just annoying that it's one more because, if Disney Plus launches in the UK, I'm going to have to subscribe to that because it's 4 series. Because what we didn't mention in last week's podcast or whenever we were doing it is there's going to be a Falcon and what's-his-face Soldier series as well. They've confirmed that.
Okay.
So they're putting all the movie stars into TV series, with the exception of Captain America and Iron Man, because there's no way they're going to do that. But Falcon and Winter Soldier, they're getting a series as well. So you've got the 2 Star Wars series and the 2 Marvel series. That you've got me sold. I have to pay for Amazon because what's coming on Amazon next year, and there's no fucking way I'm missing that. I love you, Amazon, for saving that series. There's Netflix, obviously, and then there's the Apple bloody one because there's several things on there, which I know I'm forgetting one of them, but there's several things on there that are really interesting, and that will launch in the UK because Apple. So yeah, it's just getting annoying. It's like my TV subscriptions are going up and up and up. But there we go. But I have to say, I enjoyed the first episode of Origin, and I love Cobra Kai. So yeah, well done, YouTube. You bastards.
But YouTube should, if YouTube were clever enough, they can clearly compete with Netflix, but they've got to think in different terms. Yeah. So you think in terms of, I don't subscribe to YouTube, I buy TV series. Yeah.
Potentially, but Apple tried that model, and I'm not sure it will work. I don't know. You could be right, but
it's all about the timing and stuff, because YouTube have got much better video tech than Apple's got. So okay.
Well, yes. It depends on what. Well, yeah. At the moment, they do.
As in, they can put it on fucking fridges, which Apple can't do at the moment until they bring out the iFridge.
The iFridge. No, it's Apple fridge these days.
Oh, Apple fridge. I miss putting.
By the way, those new iPads, don't sit on them because they bend.
Yeah, that was another thing on my bloody newsfeed about bendy bloody
Yeah.
iPad Pros.
They're not. Yeah,
why
not good.
why do iPad?
And they're really fucking expensive as well. But there we go.
Yeah. So let's move on to Stanley. I'll be honest with you. I'm not.
Stanley.
Yes, I said Stanley.
It sounded like you said Stanley.
Oh,
Stanley.
Anyway.
Oh yeah, I know Stanley.
Can I just say something before you two talk? There's just something which has gone in the back of my head with the Stanley thing, yeah? Right, which is, he won't get to see the last Infinity Wars, but the last Infinity Wars will probably be the film which becomes the biggest film of all time.
Yeah.
And it will be dedicated into his memory.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, I find that very fitting. Because you know at the end of the Infinity Wars, you know that they're going to do probably a 2-minute thing on Stanley with different clips. Because I would, if I was the director of that film, I'd be like, once the film ends, you're going to get some Stan Lee. Because they'll have footage of him cracking funnies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I personally find it a very fitting way. I know he doesn't get to see the film, but I do find it a very fitting way that it will end like that. That's just my personal.
He won't see it, but his family will.
Yeah.
See, the first thing you need to realise about Stanley, and this is something that you probably would have thought about, but not probably articulated, that Stan Lee created American mythology. The same way you got in the Greek gods and the Norse gods and the Egyptian gods. He created, and the Roman gods, and he created American mythology. Yeah. And Stanley always insisted that his characters had flaws, which is one thing that they've all had over DC, which made them far more interesting than the DC lot. So he did that, and I know it's sad that he's passing, but he did so much, and we should be celebrating what one person could achieve in their life. There's a great clip from Spider-Man 3 where he's talking to Peter Parker, and he says to him, "I suppose one person can make a difference," and that sums up Stan Lee. He made a difference. He created these great things. He served in the army during the war. I sound like fucking Uncle Albert there. And he did like posters, and one of his posters, it was VD, not me, to stop troops getting venereal diseases and stuff. He called himself Stanley rather than Stanley Lieberman, which was his real name, because he wasn't planning on being in comics very long, because he wanted to be the great American author, and he went, I can't really put my name against comics, everyone will think I'm a bit shit. Yeah, and he did that, and he just fucking kept the name because he did so much. You have to realise that Stanley's active years were like 61 to 72, which was like 11 years, and in those 11 years, you got the Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, all of those characters, all of the big characters we got now, came from that one period where he was around, because he was helping invent all these characters. There's a great story about him and Bob Kane. He goes, Bob Kane wouldn't shut up that he fucking created Batman. So they're going to restaurants, and he goes, "Hey, do you know who I am? I'm fucking Bob Kane," like that, yeah? And him and Jack Kirby used to get annoyed with Bob Kane, because Bob Kane would turn up late. So Stanley and Jack Kirby would turn around and say, "Right, we'll tell Bob to get there for 8, yeah? We'll get there for 8:15. So they get there for 8:15, yeah? Bob would turn up at 8:30. Every time. And he would sit there and he'd go, I'm doing a Spider-Man. And Stanley would just tell us I'm a writer, because he didn't want the attention. And it's ironic, because towards the end, fucking tons of attention, ever since I think it's like 2000. He got tons of attention because he put all these like kind of cameos and bits into the films and whatnot. But he did that. He had to fire a ton of his staff at one point. And I can't remember who it was. One of the other Marvel writers came in and just caught him fucking sobbing on his desk that he had to fire all these people because he said, "These are my friends." because I've worked with these people for years. They're friends, they're not colleagues or fucking employees. They're friends, and I have to get rid of them, and I don't want to do that. And it's one of those things. It's like kind of you have those bits, and he had his ups and downs. And Marvel almost went bankrupt. I think did go bankrupt twice. Once in the late 70s and 90s, which he tried to do his damnedest to make sure it wouldn't happen. And then he was desperate to get the Marvel films put onto Marvel films out into the world. So the Marvel characters out into film into the world. And he was trying to get James Cameron to direct Spider-Man. But he was going to direct Spider-Man shortly after he did Titanic. And Titanic fucking blew up to the point that James Cameron would never have to fucking work again.
Yeah.
So they had to shop that around. And he some of the things that he said, like he would take the piss out of DC. Yeah, he turns around and goes, because I can't remember what the name of the comic company was before. So we changed our name to Marvel. Yeah. And the people from DC looked at that and went, we'll change our name to DC. And it's like, how fucking boring is that? You know how boring is that? You Detective Comics. So you're just going to shrink it down to DC. So he took the piss out of him for that. And he said, because if I had a cameo in a DC film, they'd fucking get more money. He was like, kind of seriously, till I got one cameo in there, people just turn up to see what the fuck is Stan Lee doing in a DC film. So yeah, he did lots of stuff. It's weird because I'm talking about it and I'm starting to forget some of the bits that he invented. So yeah, he always thought Bruce Banner's name was Bob. He also forgot to make Mary Jane ugly. I'm just looking at some of the few things here and there. He was the other thing too. Is he was responsible for having a shared universe.
Yeah.
He was one of the first people to say, "Hey, these guys are in the same universe."
Only he wrote Silver Surfer. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, he was a big Silver Surfer thing. He had a big falling out with a guy called Jack Kirby, and Jack Kirby was. There's like some legends. There's Bob Kane, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, Avrid, or whatever his name is. I can't bloody say it. Todd McFarlane, and a couple of others I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were like big boys. And him and Jack Kirby had a massive fucking falling out. And Jack Kirby went to DC to start doing stuff for DC. And they managed to sort out their differences in like 1993, shortly before Jack Kirby died, which is a bit tragic, and it kind of talks about stuff like that. But there's so many things. It's like if you look, it was like he always wanted. It's like he had his like a column in the comics he called his soapbox, where he'd talk about issues and this, that, and the other, and he'd reply to letters and stuff. So he'd sit there and he'd type it up, and he'd talk about civil rights and stuff in these things. So he was, he was not, he wasn't backwards or racist. Even though that I know that some people on Twitter have tried to make it about the fucking case.
Just idiots.
And even a few actual people have done it. There was something that I got. Armie Hammer. Have you heard of him?
No.
Armie Hammer. He was in the Lone Ranger, Reaper, and some other things. He put a tweet out. He turns around and says, "He goes, look, I know that everyone wants to say that they miss Stan Lee, but all I'm seeing is pictures of people, selfies of Stan Lee, yeah, and not stuff about Stan Lee. And I kind of feel that's a bit disgraceful." He got some shit for that, because people were trying to do it in good faith, but he took it in bad faith. But he did have a point. These are all fucking selfies of people with Stan Lee. But then again, if I had a selfie, I probably would have put that up too. And it's weird. I always talk to Alex and my family about if I were to have an imaginary, if my family were to be cast with movie stars, who would be playing who? Yeah, and Stan Lee would be Grandad.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's one of the people that I'd have, because he had that like kind of warmth and stuff, and that's how Grandad made me feel, and I would like everyone else to feel the same.
I'd have had Ronnie Barker, to be honest, yeah. But
think about all the Marvel things that you enjoy. There are tons of Marvel things that you enjoy. When I say Marvel to you, what's the first thing you think of?
Well, Avengers.
Avengers. Stan Lee was responsible for the Avengers. Fucking awesome. And he had some great cameos in there. It's like, knock, knock, knock. I've got a package here for Tony Stank.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Tony Stank.
So,
And he's gone, yeah, Tony Stank is here.
yeah, I love that.
Just think, it'll be his last ever cameo in that film.
No, because they've already recorded a cameo for.
They've recorded a few.
They've recorded more than they've recorded one for that and more films too. So you'll see him in Captain Marvel, and you'll probably see him in Avengers too.
That's what I mean. Avengers 2 will be his last cameo,
yeah.
won't it?
I don't know. It depends how many they've got recorded and how they're going to do it. Because part of me doesn't like the idea of him not being in there. Because I always enjoy that bit. It was always the like, where's Wally in a film?
Yeah.
Where you'd spot fucking Stan Lee. It's like, there's
I
Stan
like
Lee.
I like my favourite one was where he was just blind drunk with Thor and
Age of Ultron, that one, yeah.
Yeah, Age of Ultron, I think it was. Yeah. What's his face? Thor had got out some sort of alcohol from his homeland, and he's going, "Oh, this stuff will not good," and he's going, just give it to me, you pansy," sort of thing. Next thing you know, he's being carried out, slowing,
Going, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
That's the thing, though, is you watch those things and it was good. They were always fun to see. It was like the one in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where he's talking to the Watchers, and he's like, kind of, "Hi guys, how am I going to get home?" And you always got like the impression that Stan Lee's actual person in that universe was like, bad shit happened to him. Like Ant-Man and the Wasp. In Ant-Man and the Wasp, he turns around to get in his car, and they hit it with one of those shrinking discs.
Yeah.
So he gets hit with the shrinking disc, and turns around, he drops his car keys, goes, "That's it. I knew you did too many drugs in the 60s. And it was great. It's just like, oh my god. They're all really good, and it's like the one that I remember. I know the Hulk, the first Hulk with Ang Lee one wasn't very good, but it had him and Lou Ferrigno in there. So you had the original Hulk from a TV series and Stan Lee, and they were like security guards chatting to each other as they're walking out. And you watch that and go, "Look, it's Stan Lee."
He was. I don't know if you remember the TV show Hulk.
Yes, that was the first time he appeared.
He was in that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first time he appeared inside a TV show.
That's just when they got the weightlifter or whatever his name is. I can't remember his name, and just painted him green.
Yeah, that was Lou Ferrigno. That's the guy. So
Was
he
that
was
his name?
Yeah. But that was great, and I've seen a clip of him in DC Teen Titans where he lands on the bonnet of the Titans car, and he yells at him because, "I have no idea what I'm doing here, but this is a Stan Lee cameo," and then disappears. And it's his voice. And it's the guy had like a very good sense of humour, and it never came across as
He had a very youthful mind.
Yeah,
It's probably the best way to put him.
and I've been thinking about kind of what to say, because it was more, as I said, I didn't want to go on a sour note because I got so much joy of all these fucking creations.
Mm.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I watched a TV series called B5, and like half the fucking cast are dead.
Yeah, I know.
Which is, that was in the 90s, it was like finished in 97, 98, and like half the fucking cast are dead. And they
They weren't even that old either.
yeah, they weren't old.
You know, you're looking at 50s to late 60s.
50, it was, yeah, and it was, yeah, and Stan making it to 95 with all that's fucking awesome. That's a fucking achievement to do all of that.
I always find things like that strange because his wife only died last year.
That's
And as soon as I saw his wife die last year when I was reading about it, in the back of my head I did think to myself, that's not a good sign, you know, because it normally you normally see couples which go on for a very long time. Both of them are normally around.
Yeah, you tend to find that when the wife dies, the man dies shortly after. But sometimes, most of the time, when the man dies, the wife goes on for a lot longer.
Yeah.
It
was probably about a year between my granddad dying and then my nan dying, maybe a year and a half. So I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, it's I don't know what it is. It's just one of those things, isn't it? You know, it's just. I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant in terms of what he gave us. I think how many people can say writers get. Let's be honest. Like, I know people go on about the Harry Potters and stuff like that, but let's be honest. It's
I'll be
nothing compared with the Marvel universe.
I'll be honest with
what
you.
he gives.
That and Star Wars are the only things that you can even be in the same ballpark.
I don't
None
even
of
think
that-
they come
they-
close,
no.
though. Personally,
They can be sitting in the stands and watching.
yeah, but they're still not. You know, you've got Marvel at the top, and then you got Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Lord of the Rings, and then DC. Really, he created something very special.
Yeah.
You know, and he created characters which everyone loved. You know.
Yeah, and it's because they were flawed.
Yeah.
It was the idea was that you couldn't have someone perfect. He talked about that he couldn't stand the way that Superman was in the
But
DC
flawed
comics.
characters make the best.
Yeah, they do. It's like it's with any story. It's if the character doesn't struggle, I don't care about him. Seriously, if there's no struggle for that character, yeah, and it's like I'm going to go back to Doctor Who.
It's to
And I'm gonna-
overcome something, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I'll go back and I'm going to reference a fucking Chris Chibnall episode. There was a Chris Chibnall episode, yeah, where the Doctor has to sort out. It's called 42, and he has to sort out this problem with the ship, where these fucking it's going to crash into the sun, and these like people are going around, and it was. They didn't seem there was much at stake, so Russell T Davies told him to put a fucking scene in there with a bit of a physical struggle in there, because it wasn't very good. Because he knew he wasn't fucking stupid. But the character struggle, it's like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's almost a fucking tragedy. You just go through all the bits, yeah? It's like in the Spider-Man story, it's like kind of he loses his Uncle Ben. He then loses Gwen Stacy's dad. He then loses Gwen fucking Stacy. Yeah, he then finds out fucking Norman Osborn's the sodding Green Goblin, and him and Harry then have a fucking massive falling out, yeah? And you go through all the shit. He gets cloned, yeah? And he doesn't know if he's the clone or not. And that was interesting. It's like Iron Man had trouble dealing with himself, so he'd get pissed. Hank Pym was a fucking wife beater, which I left out in the fucking Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, he was the domestic violence person.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's I don't know. It's like it's like it's like any film though. Like when you look at any film, like take in the back of my head, like take like Die Hard for instance. Yeah, I know this is just slightly off topic, but take a film like that. Like you know, he's divorced. You know, he's a beat up cop.
He hasn't got a pair of shoes.
Yeah. He's basically on his fucking knees, really.
Yeah.
And then he has to overcome, and that's how people fall in love with characters. You know, I'm just using that as an example, but that's the
Like,
reason why
fucking-
people wanted to see another film of Die Hard, because of the character was so bloody interesting.
It's like fucking Ripley in Alien.
Exactly,
And
another
Aliens.
flawed character.
Yeah, so in Aliens, she was a flawed character. In the other one, she was just overwhelmed with the fucking situation. But when you got to Aliens, she had fucking PTSD.
She was
had
breaking
proper
down, yeah.
PTSD. Yeah, and then she had the fucking loss of her daughter, which they didn't put in the original cut. He knew that. That's the thing, is he knew that those characters were interesting, and that's something. There's a lesson that you need to fucking take away there from it, Mr. Chibnall, you cock. But yeah, Stanley was he was a cool dude, and it's sad that we've not got him anymore. But you know, people can't live forever, and it's one of those things we
It's
always
like the
knew.
Queen
was
song,
gonna
isn't it?
happen. Yeah. You got anything you want to add, Nige, before we wrap it up?
No, I think you've said it all.
I'm sorry, I said too fucking much. I monologued. I
Yeah.
monologued like a villain from a Marvel comic.
Just one more thing to add to it, really, is Hail Hydra!
Hell, Hydra, fuck off.
Yeah. No, it's sad he's gone, but he has brought so much joy to so many people, and you can't put money on that. So he's done well.
Yeah, there's what do you call it? You can't deny his cultural impact is fucking huge.
I don't care if you're DC. I know there's DC people and Marvel people. You can't deny what Stan Lee's brought to the table, really, with Marvel. So doesn't matter what you like. He's done a lot.
Yeah,
He has brought a lot of joy to people.
It's weird because he was responsible for importing all the Japanese comics during the 80s. So you got all like manga and anime and stuff on that. And I saw a tribute from a Japanese artist where they kind of did this little cartoon character. I can't remember. I think it's like I don't know if it's One Punch Man or the Dragon Ball Z character, and had them with Stan Lee, and that was nice. That a guy who doesn't even fucking speak English recognised him for what he did for them, and could do that. So
did he get any tributes from DC by any chance?
I imagine he did. I don't think there's anyone who didn't give him a fucking tribute. There's only a few people who I think are absolute cocks who didn't say anything. But we will leave that for another day. So you didn't hear my 20-minute long speech about Stan Lee being the progenitor of the modern American mythology.
I think you're absolutely right. I was genuinely, and when movie stars die, it's like, I was almost in tears when I found out Stan Lee had died, and I never even met him, but I always wanted to. I'm gutted. I'm genuinely. I knew, I had a feeling it was coming. There were rumours about his health, and after his wife died, who he was incredibly close to, I thought, I don't think it's going to be long. And unfortunately it wasn't, but I am genuinely gutted. I don't really have that many words. I mean, the guy is pretty much responsible for half my bloody childhood.
Yeah. I was just trying to explain to Nige and Alex about where he kind of have like the modern kind of stories around like the gods and stuff that you get in Greece and Norse mythology. He's like the top man. Yeah, it's like Homer's fucking Iliad or whatever you want to call it, where he's managed to produce and sort these things out. And he produced a lot of these characters in a very short time, which is amazing. And the only people who kind of sit with him are people like George Lucas and what's the most one does Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. Yeah, who can get close to his level. As I was trying to explain that they're in the ballpark, but they may be sitting in the stands and not playing the game because of the amount.
We'll have to cut. You've made an interesting comment there about J.K. Rowling. We will come back to that one next week because that's interesting, and I've got quite a lot of thoughts around her. Okay. So at the moment, but we'll have to come back to that next week. I'm desperate. Hurry up and go and see it because we need to dissect that film.
Okay. Well, I think we're picking up every stray person in every family whose family don't want to see Harry Potter, and they're coming along with us.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's interesting because I saw quite a few documentaries this week about, because DC characters came before a lot of the Marvel characters, and actually when you compare, you look at like the likes of Spider-Man. Spider-Man was an everyday kid. Yeah. And you look at the DC heroes back then, you had like Bruce Wayne, which was a multi-millionaire, Superman, which was effectively a god, as was Wonder Woman. Whereas you look at like Spider-Man, he was an everyday kid that got bitten by a spider and then became what he did. And the way Stan Lee did it, and the fact that he left Marvel in the 70s, yet he was in every Marvel movie. Doesn't matter what, he's in the bloody Spider-Man video game. He makes a cameo in that, and I love it when he did.
He makes two cameos in it.
I haven't come across the second cameo yet.
Okay.
I'm only about 50% of the way through.
Okay, because the other cameo is right towards the end.
Yeah, I haven't got to the end of it yet. No, I'm sort of like, I was playing it too much and my wife told me off. But no, I'm genuinely gutted because I would have loved to have just, got his autograph or met him. But it's one of the. He was on my. There are a few people on my top list. He was one of them. Brian Blessed and Murray Walker. Those are the three that I'd love to meet. Because they're like. I'd love to meet Brian Blessed.
You need earplugs for Brian Blessed.
Yeah, but I'd love to meet him. I'd love to interview him for a podcast. I'd love to.
Fucking. You know why we take the piss out of you and we say when we record you're booming, yeah. Brian Blessed is the megaton version of you.
Yes, I know. That's why it'd be such an interesting podcast. The audio would be fucked.
The best Blessed line I ever heard was, Palm Pilot? Sounds like a fucking wanking voice to me. I'll have to see if I can
he's
find
like that in real life. When he's sort of like, you know, let loose, he is a very interesting, funny guy. He's also swears a hell of a lot, but I'd love to interview him. I'd love to interview him.
Apparently he's got hundreds of fucking pets.
Yes, he does. Yes, I've heard that. It's but no, Stanley. I mean, look, he was a legend, and he had a life, and he lived a long life. In some ways, I'm glad he's at peace now. I mean, I know that the death of his wife really did affect him, and I'm glad he's at peace. Lord God, he deserves it. But the world has lost a legend, and the world has lost a true legend, far more than a lot of these other stars that die. Everything that was said about Stanley was true, and it is a shame. But you know, God bless you.
I'll say goodbye.
Yeah, it is. Goodbye.
Adios, amigos.
And I'd like to say, Excelsior!
Thanks for downloading the Monkey Nut Punch podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Monkey Nut Punch. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Monkey Nut Punch.